Hey guys, welcome back to the Lit Mag Lab podcast. I'm Jazz Marie, aka Vevna Forrow. So, previously on the podcast, we hit the 100th episode of this series. Yes, so that was Moss Puppy Magazine, episode number 100. So, do listen back to that. I was just showing you around their website, the embeddables, talking through their structure, their site changes, layout, and calls. So, yeah, it looks like we've reached the end of the year here. Time surely does fly. And yeah, 2026 is upon us. So I hope everyone, had a great holidays or Christmas if you celebrated, and just wishing you all a happy new year in advance. However, I know, sorry to be a downer, but I do have some sad news. So, on this podcast, I don't just cover, lit magazine journals that are, open or things like that. I cover, tips for founding editors. I cover, you know, uh, things that submitters may be interested in, right? Existing lit magazine journals, but also I think it's important to also share closures, right? And to talk through some of those lit magazine journals that close, right? On this podcast, I talked about Nianjin and yeah, a few other names I mentioned or ones on hiatus. But yeah, predominantly I do cover lit magazine journals that have not closed or anything like that. But just because a place has shut down doesn't mean we shouldn't discuss it or share it, because absolutely a lot of lit magazine journals out there have some really cool setups or have done some really amazing things. So one of those being Drunk Monkeys, right? So they were founded, I believe, back in 2011, right? So 14 years, right? They just closed or announced on December 2nd of this month. And it's really heartbreaking to hear that. So for those of you unaware, and if you can see on my screen, I'm on their website, drunkmonkeys.us. And yeah, it says, "This monkey's gone to heaven. A goodbye to Drunk Monkeys, a monthly online magazine devoted to literature, film, and television, featuring short fiction, flash fiction, poetry, creative nonfiction, film reviews, art, and comics." So yeah, I particularly love that they focused on film and television too, and art and comics. I love those specifically, that Drunk Monkeys had. And yeah, so they also have a really, really fun name. Obviously, right? You can see the monkey with the bottle, right? Now, not to be confused with, there are a couple other different lit magazine journals out there that have drunk in the name. Actually, there's one I think on Substack called Drunks, and then there's another one I think out there, maybe more than one. So not to be confused with other ones, but yeah, Drunk Monkeys started back in 2011, closed December, or on Instagram at least they posted on December 2nd that they closed in 2025 of this year. So what I want to do is just, give you a tour of their site, talk through some things, and again, you can see my screen out on YouTube, Spotify, and elsewhere. On the screen, sometimes there are site ads, that some lit magazine journals have or things like that. Just as a result of that, sometimes I have to mark some episodes as, sponsored or different things, even though it's not sponsored, right? It's just like the system detects things on certain platforms. So yeah, that's a thing. And a few other things I have to check whenever there's ads on screen. So none of these episodes are sponsored to date or anything like that, but ads and stuff are usually detected as something of to that nature. Some of these podcast distribution platforms. So yeah. Anyways, let's get started here. So yeah, Drunk Monkeys, right? So I'm gonna head over to their Chill Subs overview page. Now they're not marked as defunct quite yet or closed on Chill Subs, but I'm sure that that'll change. Now when a page typically is marked like that, it no longer is going to be available through the browse, I believe. And you can see they made some updates to the Chill Subs layout, and maybe I will cover that in another episode, just talking through one thing I didn't mention in the Chill Subs overview episode. And since they've made changes to things, again, I think it'd be nice to maybe just cover that real quick or talk through some of the things that they've adjusted, or just my thoughts and feedback. So, Drunk Monkeys, it looks like here, right? They did publish reprints, nominated for prizes. They didn't have a fee. It says their vibe was picky but possible. their acceptance rate was averaging around 40%, 40.43%. And that's just for those, again, who track their submission decision through chill subs, right? Response time, they said 180 days, editor reported, and then it was averaging 80 days, through chill subs tracker stats, it looks like. Based on the US, right? So I'm just going to read their about description for you guys in full. So, Drunk Monkeys was a literary magazine and film blog founded in 2011, which offered a diverse array of content that included short stories, flash fiction, poetry, film articles, movie reviews, and more. The magazine published monthly featuring original works such as short fiction, flash fiction, poetry, creative nonfiction, film reviews, art, and comics. The editorial team was comprised of Kolleen Carney, I apologize, mispronounced last name, Hoepfner, and that is Hoepfner, Hoepfner. I apologize, I completely messed up the last name, probably. But yeah, editor in chief was Kolleen Carney-Hoepfner with Chris Pruitt serving as managing editor and Matthew Guerrero as the founding editor. The magazine was based in North Hollywood, California. So Drunk Monkeys, they had, accepted submissions in various categories, including, again, fiction, poetry, nonfiction, and film essays. They were open to previously published work, provided, the original publication was disclosed. Simultaneous subs were allowed, but they always, had other authors, withdraw their work if it's accepted elsewhere. The magazine did not accept multiple submissions in any category, and due to a high volume of submissions, right, they stated back then, right, response times may extend up to 6 months, and there is an up to 1 year wait for publication upon acceptance. In addition to its regular content, Drunk Monkeys, had featured special issues, right? So 2024 Pop Culture Spectacular, which had showcased a variety of works related to pop culture. Yeah. So obviously, they're no longer going to be active on social media or anything like that. And yeah, they've closed. But yeah, that doesn't mean we can't, check out what their structure was, right? So we can see they had, general call, right? It looks like prose, poetry, prose poems, art, literary, general, and memoir, right? So memoir is showing up to 5,000 words, no fee. Literary was showing fiction long read up to 10,000 words, art no fee. General prose, poetry, or up to 5 pieces. So it looks like 69 tracked their submissions through chill subs, right? From that was accepted 19, rejected 28, pending 9, withdrawn 11, didn't respond 2. Yeah. So I think that's pretty much it, in terms of their overview page. So we're going to head over to their website. It does note submittable was what they were using. And they did, have work that they had published appear in Best of the Net. And Fish List, they were 104 out of 1,830. Breck Top 1,000, 381 out of 1,000. Breck Top 1,000 nonfiction, 291 out of 1,000. So Breck Top 1,000 poetry, 242 out of 1,000. And yeah, so industry rankings, if you're not familiar with that, I do have an episode titled Fish List, which covers some of these industry ranking lists, just talking through it. And yeah, they, had a really cool lit mag, so I just want to take some time to share it with you guys. They did have a duotrope page, as you can see here, right? But of course, right, once a publication is inactive or defunct, right, or even if their publication frequency isn't, on track or anything like that, or consistent, right, then it gets delisted off of duotrope. Also, any related listings, right? It looks like they have chapbooks and anthology series, right? That was, yeah, too. So yeah, let's go to the menu here. Again, you may see some ads pop up at the top of my screen. May or may not, might be a sliver of them from their site, but it's not from me or anything like that. So yeah, you can see they have a goodbye letter. So how I came across this, actually, I was searching goodbye lit mag, So I was just typing Lit Mag goodbyes actually on search one night. I was just wondering, I wonder if anyone has, typed any goodbye letters or anything like that. And I was surprised, because actually, yeah, I have again submitted to them in the past, like a couple years ago. I didn't get an acceptance, but I always thought what they had, set up was really cool. I think actually, maybe I'll share a little later when we do a look at how they had published posts and poetry. I think one of my volunteer staff readers actually has a piece published through them actually. So we'll take a look at it. But yeah, you can see they have a letter. This monkey's gone to heaven. And yeah, so there are just some quotes here, right, and final words, right. Yeah, they stated it was an amazing 10 years that they had, past 10 years, the film editor, the managing editor, right? So there's messages from everyone, right? And yeah, Colleen goes into a letter here stating, her journey with Drunk Monkeys and how much she loved it. And, publishing, everyone, the people that were in it. It was just really cool, and I think as founding editors, we get some really lovely messages from time to time. And yeah, a lot of things like that. It's never easy to close a Lit Mag journal, right? As I stated, right, a lot of love goes into Lit Mags and journals typically, right? And yeah, so it's tough, so I'm not going to, um, you know, read this off for you guys, but you can read it if you'd like, while it's still up and everything. I think there's a quote from Star Wars and things like that. But yeah, it's very heartbreaking to hear about their closure. You can see they have an issue section here. I'm just gonna quickly go through some parts of their website for you guys. So yeah, there's an editor letter, right, and fiction, right? So then they have it divided, right, and you can click into these, right, for the issue, essays, film. And yeah, a lot of lit journals have this layout where you can click into, each publication section. And yeah, there's television and, film, one perfect episode, music, even art, right? And yeah, so that's cool. Yeah. So um, they have that, issue 9.4, April 2024 pop culture issue. Then they have issue 9.3, March 2024, and then they have back issues. So let's click into just another one to see. Um, so they have some, things above that you saw, right? Which was ads and then, Unsplash, right? A photo there. And yeah, so letter from the editor again, right? And then poetry, fiction, essays, film, right? It has that structure. So it says at the bottom here, right? You may notice Marginalia Publishing. And yeah, and their Drunk Monkeys logo was designed by Severin Feel, and Alan Ferguson. So yeah, so they had this layout, right, where it was poetry, fiction, and you can like click into these. Let's click on one of the poetry ones. I'm just curious. So yeah, that's what it looks like. They have the photo and then the right and then the author bio, right? And yeah. So I'm gonna go to their side menu here and we can see back issues. Let's see how that was set up. So monthly back issues, it looks like they had an image tile and then you click into the volume, right? 2023. They had all of these, right? And yeah. So yeah, they had all of these. I won't scroll through the full page for you guys, but that is how they had it laid out, right? So yeah, all of their back issues, and yeah, so it's basically the sections laid out, and online, all of them are linked out, right? Poetry, essays, the film ones, and the episode ones. Yeah, yeah, literature. They have recent fiction, recent poetry, book reviews. So yeah, they had a lot of different categories. Let's click in book reviews. Let's see what that looks like. So yeah, it looks like that was back in 2024, the last one. And then we'll go into expand literature again. Recent fiction, let's take a look at the setup for that. Yeah, so they just had, the tiles of it, right? So typically unsplash photo, I think, right? And then, yeah, and then they have the unsplash credit there, which is always good to see. And yeah, and then we'll go into recent poetry. Same thing, it's a tile image, and then it has the publication date, the author, and when you click into it, their bio, and yeah, the rights above it. So let's see what else we have here. So I covered that. Yep. And the side menus on the left hand side here. I don't know how many of you guys are fan of collapsible menus. I do like collapsible menus actually. My current Limex site, we did have a collapsible menu, but that's probably gonna change. I might try to change it back to a collapsible menu again. So let's close out of that and let's go back to the Drunk Monkeys bookstore. Yeah. So some very cool titles here. They even did anthologies, right? You can see they back in spring of 2016 they used to do anthologies. I don't know if they have more anthologies than this, but it's possible that they did more anthologies beyond 2016. I haven't looked into it much, but yeah, or they possibly stopped doing those anthologies at some point in time. But yeah, they've published a lot of really cool books, over time. Um, And yeah, so the Drunk Monkeys bookstore. So yeah, it looks like they have from the Drunk Monkey staff some of their work, and then they also have the anthologies, right? That Drunk Monkeys published, in the past. It looks like these are from 2016. I don't know if they discontinued that at some point in time, a couple years after Drunk Monkeys started. But anyways, you can do an anthology series if you're lit my journal. A print one if you'd like, totally, if it's online. And yeah, it's always a good idea to give others the option to get physical copies to pick up of publications from the year, or all of the ones that were published online. It can be a nice way to do that. An anthology, pack them all together and put it in a print format. Yeah. So, what else do we have here? We have the archives. So, yeah, typically, whenever a literary journal closes, right, they do establish an archive. This looks like this is a separate archive, additional one from 2011 to 2016 that they made. Another archive bucket. So, grouped together of years, fiction archive, and then, all of the years here, right? And yeah, so we scroll down further, we have went through that. We went through literature. Um, I showed you the archives. I think I skipped down. And yeah, so they have a film section too. So it says here, you will find their collection of movie reviews, including 100-word film reviews series, as well as incisive film writing from essays to recurring columns like Gabriel Richards' Captain Canada's Movie Rodeo and Sean Woodard's Once Upon a Time in Film Scoring. So yeah, I love movie reviews personally. I think that's a lot of fun. Yeah, I'm sure you guys know I give a lot of movie recs and film recs on this podcast, even though it's not a movie podcast. But I think it just goes to show you, yeah, lit mags and journals, they can, cover different topics, have different reviews, not just book reviews, not just tied to poetry or art, film, right? Music, television, all of that, I personally really love seeing that because I think we as writers, we get inspired by, everything we come into contact with, films, sometimes, probably when you're writing, you probably have a movie on or a fave song or something, that is memorable to you, or maybe that inspired you to write even, some movies inspire us to do different things in our life, they can make a profound impact on our path, in life and everything. So yeah, I love that they had film inclusion in television, that was a focus. I think that's what drew me to Drunk Monkeys when I initially was like interested in submitting to them. I was like, oh, that's a lot of fun. They do like film reviews and everything. Also, their name reminds me of like that Jackie Chan film, right? The Drunken Master. I used to have the VHS tapes of all of like Jackie Chan's earliest, movies, and my dad and I used to watch that, The Drunken Master, too. So that's what I thought of when I heard their name. Obviously, I don't drink or smoke or anything like that, guys, but I really think their name was super fun, and they had a really awesome lit mag. They did a lot of different things. So yeah, they do have their mission statement here, and yeah, an acknowledgement. So always a good idea to have your mission statement somewhere on your website. And they did start up cherry dress chapbooks at some point in time, right? And yeah, so yeah, it absolutely is, to have a chapbook series that is one that grows, consistently, and yeah, can help sustain your publication. It can, not necessarily though, it can, cost money to do that too. You really have to, have a budget, for chapbook publications, and I think it can be very costly when you get into like the whole aspect of involving other artists into the series, of chapbooks, like cover art and stuff. You're not doing it all yourself. But yeah, a lot of lit magazine journals that started online, or publications, even print based lit mag journals, they did an extension of their lit mag journal and started doing chapbook series. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be print based. I showed you in this podcast a couple places that do print and digital chapbook downloads. So, Go City Press episode, you might want to take a look at that. They have a really cool chapbook setup too. Yeah, and their summer series has always been really awesome. So yeah, that's their mission statement. I'm not going to read it for you guys, but yeah, I will quote this one thing off from their mission statement, right? So, since its inception, Drunk Monkeys has strived to showcase strong work from strong writers, build worlds, break hearts. It used to be the norm in the literary landscape, letting the work speak for itself, separating the art from the artist. However, in these increasingly divisive times, this is no longer a feasible practice. Drunk Monkeys has a very clear mission to be inclusive, to denounce bigotry of all kinds, and to stand up to those who abuse and persecute. And yeah, they had a zero tolerance policy for anything attacking in nature and stuff like that. So anything attacking nature and things like that. So yeah, yeah, so think about that. If you're starting your own lit major or listening to this, you want to have a good mission statement. You can have acknowledgments, you can have things like that, right? And yeah, so I think it's always a good idea though to have your mission statement, tied into like your, either staff page or about section, or history, all collectively. Some put their mission statement on, the further up, in the section. But yeah, it's a good idea just to have it somewhere. And they had a really nice layout of that, their mission statement and what they stood for. So, submission guidelines, let's take a look at that. I did briefly mention this when I was on the Chill Subs overview page. It says they were, back when they were open to calls and stuff, they were looking for original fiction and poetry with strong character arcs and immersive description. Again, build worlds and break hearts. That's what they really were looking for. They did accept previously published work, right? And they just want you, of course, they just wanted you to, be upfront about it. Who published the piece first. In nonfiction, right, it says they preferred pieces that were factual in a more personal essay or journalistic style, but not academic. It says keep the people in your story front and center. Simultaneous submissions, again, were allowed. And it says, again, just to withdraw if your work is accepted elsewhere. And they stated if they rejected your work, right, they had others wait, preferably 90 days before submitting again, unless they request that you send another piece for consideration. They, of course, they didn't respond to any work sent through an email inbox, but submittable is what they had used at Drunk Monkeys. They did not accept multiple submissions in any category. Multiple submissions were rejected immediately. And then, yeah, 180 days, right, was their time. Within 6 months, they tried to get back to everyone. And the exclusive rights for every work published on Drunk Monkeys belong to the contributing writer, not to the website or its owners. And it says, the author or writer's piece will always be theirs, right? And yeah. Yeah. And then they, they just emphasize, right, the extended wait between acceptance and publication. For fiction and poetry, a year wait, right? It's a long time, right? So yeah, that varies for everyone, but I think, some lit magazine journals out there, uh, they don't, yeah, they don't have a year long wait or anything like that. It really depends on the founding editor's schedule or other things, life events and stuff. When I started Dipley Lit Mag, our initial time, and we might be doing this again, our initial time was like 1 to 2 months, and then I sort of increased it to 3 to 4 months to get back to everyone. Because I'd seen a lot of things come up with like volunteer staff, team members, a lot of back-to-back life events. So then I just ended up increasing it. Our chapbook series, those typically take longer to review, so that's maybe could come back to others, maybe some places say within a year or half a year for a decision on those. But yeah, it varies. It's going to be different for every litany journal. I think whenever you set a time frame or any windows, you just want to stick to them for others as close as possible, or be communicative about changes or things that are maybe causing a delay, or uh, changing the anticipated review time and decision time, right? Always helps to be communicative or post an update somewhere on where you're at, So yeah, they always did a good job of that, and yeah. Um, they had a podcast. Now, I haven't listened to their podcast, but Drunk Monkeys Logcasting, a Twin Peaks podcast, hosted by Colleen and Chris. So yeah, that's really cool, right? And yeah, you can see that's them. And I won't scroll through all of the podcast episodes, but you guys can totally, check it out if you'd like. Yeah, I think it's a lot of fun. When Lit Magazine Journals have podcast, it's an extension of it, and yeah. So yeah, the masthead again, you can see, right, Colleen and Chris and Matt, and yeah, and the poetry editor, right, and yeah, fiction editor. They had film editor, poetry readers. They had fiction readers, staff writers, and graphic designs. So yeah, I won't scroll through their whole masthead, but they had a really extensive team too behind it, and that's really cool to see. So yeah, let's see here. So yeah, Cherry Dress Chapbooks was their chapbook series that they started up. So it looks like back on June 7th of 2022, they had their first author for the chapbook series, right? And then this isn't the bookstore, but there's a separate link for that. So here's the Cherry Dress Chapbook store. You can see here, right, they set up a chapbook subscription option, $25. So yeah, it looks like their chapbooks are about $8, and yeah. So chapbook pricing is going to be different at every press a little bit, but again, chapbooks shouldn't be super expensive. Typically, if they are illustrated, that increases the cost a little bit more, the price, or the length of it. Some prices are done based on length, or if there's illustrated work included in it, or other things within the chapbook, original art or original photography. But yeah, chapbooks are supposed to be very, inexpensive. They shouldn't be super, super pricey or anything like that. So yeah, they had $8 chapbooks. That's really cool. Some really cool titles. Now let's click into one of these actually, yeah. I'm just curious, what this looks like. So yeah, they have Choose Your Own Poem by Candace Kelsey, Gloom of Excruciating Desires by Olivia Pierce Graham, and the subscription Childproof Sky by Trapper Mark Kells, Nocturnes by Kathleen Allen Conway. That was back in 2023, so I don't think that is accurate, the pre-order on it in the title, but that's very cool that they had a chapbook series. It's not easy to do that by any means. So that's awesome that they had a chapbook series too and a chapbook store. Yeah, they have their social media links plugged in, their podcast links out here. So yeah, that's basically Drunk Monkeys. And yeah, I think one of my volunteer staff members actually has a piece in your Tour Rose, dying art. Yeah. So this was a poem Tor had up here in Drunk Monkeys. Tor was the author of Frayed Edges. So yeah, that was cool. This was I just come across this too, and I was like, oh, Drunk Monkeys. I recall, and that Tor had a piece in there. So yeah, that's cool. Yeah. So yeah, they had a consistent layout. You can see with their website, right? So the unsplash photo or tile image, and then the right and the bio, right, of the writer, right, and the poet. So that's awesome. It's a consistent layout. So it looks like this was October 16th. And yeah. So I think there's arrows on the side here. Yeah, that didn't take you to a previous publication or post too. So yeah, that's a good navigation element, right? You can go back or forward, and they have a search, right? So that's always good to see. And yeah, so yeah, again, some lit magazine journals do have ads on their site, or things like that. Even in ad placement requests that they take, for print or online, that can be another great way to facilitate funds for lit mag or journal as well. Some places do in print ads or features of authors, spotlighting their books, or some do just like banner ads like this, and stuff like that. Yeah. So, yeah, that's basically Drunk Monkeys. I just want to do a quick tour of their website. They did a lot of different products, right? Chapbooks, their podcast series, film, television, and literature, guys. So that is a really cool combination, I think, and yeah, a lot of fun too. I love film. I'm sure you guys know I love movies, television movies. I talk about movies on almost every single podcast series I've done. So yeah, in terms of movies, I mentioned Jackie Chan, The Drunken Master movie. I don't know what year was that, guys. I'm trying to remember it for you guys. The Drunken Master. I'm trying to remember what it was. So The Drunken Master, I think it was a was it a 1978 film? And yeah, I think there was even The Drunken Master 2, right? Wasn't there, or 1994? So yeah, 1978 Jackie Chan, The Drunken Master. And then another movie I was thinking about was the classic Planet of the Apes films, right? 1968. In that series. I would say I was someone who watched more so the classic, versions, the originals. I'm not a huge fan of the reboots, and things like that. Yeah. But yeah, nevertheless I've seen, all of them, but I think you can't beat some of the originals and classics, Cornelius and Taylor, right? And that scene, I think we all remember, right at the end of the Statue of Liberty, and he's on his knees and everything. So yeah, yeah, that series was always very memorable to me. The Planet of the Apes films, right? So yeah, that series was always memorable to me. Right? Planet of the Apes, right? 1968, 1970, 1971, 1973, 1972. And yeah, I saw the 2011 one, the 2014 one, and the 2017 one. I wouldn't say I was a huge fan of the most recent one, 2024. But yeah, definitely, the ones from the 1900s, right? The classics, right? I watched those quite a few times over the years. And and yeah, it's a very interesting concept, the Planet of the Apes. And yeah, but definitely my faves were like the originals. I think sometimes you can't beat originals, and they didn't have a lot of special effects to work with back then, or as much. I think sometimes CGI, right, it's too heavy. It feels less authentic when there's too much special effects, too much things like that. So I really love a lot of classic and original movies and films, because they were working with less than what is possible today in terms of like special effects, and they really had to get creative with things. And I think the acting oftentimes in the original classic movies was just really cool. And even some of the makeups they did back then were just really really interesting and really hard. Several classic films, over the years I've grew up watching more so, I'm not huge on reboots, I'd say, not huge. Some reboots have been done well, totally, but typically I am a fan of like classics and originals. And yeah, so that's basically it, guys. That's Drunk Monkeys. I just wanted to, give them a shout on this podcast and say, yeah, they were around since 2011, guys. So, that is a very, very long time, and yeah, it's always really hard for founding editors to, it's always really hard for founding editors to close. I think Colleen did a really great job with Drunk Monkeys, and, it's very sad to hear about its closure this December. But, their website's still up right now at the very moment, and you can, totally, read some of the pieces, check it out. If we scroll further down here, on their site, you can see they have, right, a section even, right, for literature and the post, right, and poetry, fiction, and yeah. So yeah, they had it also visible there, television, and some of the posts, as you can see on my screen. Yeah, so they were using Squarespace, as you can see on the bottom. Typically, you can, right click and view page source to see that, or some lit magazine journals will, have what the website's powered by listed. So yeah, Squarespace is not too bad at all. I mentioned that in the website builder episode, right? Squarespace, WordPress, Wix, right? A couple different ones out there. Yeah, that lit magazine journals use for their website. And yeah, so I think that's pretty much it. Drunk Monkeys, 2011 to 2015, guys. Yeah, so it's very. So yeah, that's Drunk Monkeys, guys. Very sad to see them go, but a very cool publication. So just because a place closes doesn't mean you stop reading the publications or anything like that. They've published a lot of great work, so do hop into it. Real quick. Obviously, some lit magazine journals founding editors do keep websites up, and some don't. So obviously some of the lit magazine journals, even I've covered in this podcast, maybe one day won't have their websites up, or some have gotten new websites and links actually too. So I did update some of the links in past episodes, but I won't always be able to do that. So just keep that in mind. Yeah, so 2011 to 2025, Drunk Monkeys, guys, that's it. Again, sad to see them go, but a lot of awesome work they've published, really great jobs, and they had a really nice setup. So, yeah, it happens, closures happen, and it's not always for the same reason that everyone has, feel free to read, editor letters, goodbye letters. Some of them do give insight into closures, right, and stuff like that. I didn't read for you guys the whole letter or anything like that. I'm not going to do that on the podcast, but typically lit magazine journals, post or share about closures. Some don't, but some just disappear. But I think it's absolutely important. When you're working on a publication, it's been around, 10, 15, 20 years. Yeah, you have to, regardless of the time span, it's always a good idea to let others know, hey, what's the status of it. So yeah, Drunk Monkeys had a really nice setup. One of the places out there that really emphasized, film and television and other things just beyond poetry. So yeah, they did a lot of different things, and really cool. I think I saw on social media they had some neat reading events even, right? Too, that they participated in, which was really cool to see. And yeah, on social media channels you can sort of see some of the events or things that lit magazine journals founders attend. And yeah, I think it's cool even behind the scenes sometimes too. So yeah, I personally love film and television, and I think that's always a cool topic and focus. I'm always looking for movie recs or TV recs myself. So yeah, Drunk Monkeys, saying goodbye to it this year. So some sad news for you guys. I know. But I won't start off the new year with sad news. I do have something I want to share with you guys in the next episode, and maybe a couple of different other publications, some tips, and other things like that too. So yeah, take care, guys, and that's Drunk Monkeys. Yeah, bye, guys, and bye to Drunk Monkeys. But really, really cool publication again. Yeah, really cool online publication again. Yeah, take care.
P.S. guys, I just want to point this out because I probably can't modify the transcript on some of these chunkier episodes or anything like that. So, Colleen, that is spelled with K and then double L double E for the editor in chief. So, just wanted to point that out because, obviously, if you could see on my screen, you may have seen that, but some are listening just to the audio version of these episodes, maybe not on YouTube or elsewhere, right? Spotify, even. So, yeah. And yeah, that's pretty much it. You may have seen earlier, right, a bookstore section. Now, I think CLMP typically, before I started Dippity, right, they had told me tug out anything in terms of like personal publications or staff publications. But I've seen some publications out there, maybe in the masthead bio, they point out the work of other staff members and stuff and things like that, or I think we've seen, just a news section or on social media, team shares and stuff, and that's totally okay. But yeah, again, you just want to make sure that the publication is strictly all about, the contributors and those in it. So anyway, just a reminder there. But yeah, Drunk Monkeys, again, they had a chapbook series. They focused on literature, film, television, short fiction, flash fiction, poetry, creative nonfiction, film reviews, art, and comics. So collectively, that's a lot. Yeah. So if you're gonna start your own lit mega journal, yeah, you could start off with doing one particular category and then maybe branch out into others. You don't necessarily have to do all at the same time when you're starting, or focus on maybe three of those if you want to. It's really up to you, which ones you want to do. And yeah, lit mags aren't all about just poetry or short stories. You can branch out into a lot of different, avenues and paths with your literary arts magazine or publication series. And chapbooks maybe one day too, if you'd like. It doesn't necessarily have to be print. It could be strictly digital, as I shared. Don't forget to listen back to some of those other past episodes on chapbook presses and yeah. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I just had a memory, I've actually had my fair share of encounters with monkeys a little bit, but some trips visiting fam back in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, there were usually monkeys, on the side of the road eating fruit and stuff. And I think my grandma in KL once told me, I never forgot, she said a monkey broke into her kitchen and just started rummaging through it or something. She had caught one in there, actually. Anyways, yeah. So I was thinking about that alongside of the other movies that Drunk Monkeys, that name reminded me of. And yeah, there are some scary monkey attack counters out there, on YouTube and channels. You watch them, it's kind of like LOL and also eek, so monkeys opening doors, and there's like signs. I remember in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and other places I was traveling when I was younger. It was like, don't feed the monkeys, don't feed them, but people still did it anyway. And you have to be careful because some of them do attack. They may look really cute and things like that, but they have like a dark side to them. Some of those monkeys have issues, guys. So you want to be careful. Yeah, I remember them on the rooftops and stuff. Anyways, yeah. So just wanted to share that little tidbit memory with you guys. And yeah, a couple other memories I had tied to that, but I won't go into that. It'll be a very, very long episode. So yeah, Drunk Monkeys, just wanted to do a goodbye episode for Drunk Monkeys. And, yeah, sometimes, I'm not saying Drunk Monkeys, but sometimes some lit magazine journals have returned, in the distant future and things like that. It's possible. I've seen some lit magazine journals come back after a long time being closed. But, in this case, I think it's pretty much final for Drunk Monkeys. And, yeah, very sad to see them go. Yeah, it was a publication I always remembered. I haven't, stopped by in quite some time, but I never forgot Drunk Monkeys, and they always had a really cool online magazine site and layout, I thought. And yeah, film and television. There may be some other lit mags and journals out there that have that tied in, but I can't name any off the top of my head at the moment. But yeah, Drunk Monkeys was one of the ones out there that focused on that, and emphasized film and television, and did a lot of different things. So in terms of their closure, I had seen a couple Instagram posts leading up to the closing posts. I think some of those are archived now, but I'm not gonna read it off for you guys what I remember exactly, but I could relate to one line in there. I will share. Smile through the pain. Yeah, some of us as founding editors, physically, I can relate to things like that, dealing with things physically that are very tough to, work on a lit mag while you're dealing with other things physically, or it could be health related, right? And it's not easy by any means. Some founding editors or even team members, right? They have back to back to back life events, and it makes running a lit mag even more challenging. So everyone does what they can. And yeah, again, you can totally read. I recommend you read editor letters. They're in issues, they're online. There's a lot of different lit magazine journals that do those. And letters from the editor, what's going on, or maybe it's a not necessarily always a closure letter from the editor, but maybe just like a letter editor, a letter from the editor. Wow, I was tongue tied for a bit there. Say that 5 times fast. But in issues that talks about the focus, or how the year's gone, or maybe even I've seen those on Substack elsewhere. And it can give you insight into lit magazine journals and their operations, or the journeys, especially that founding editors have had. Even reading those goodbye letters can be very insightful. And yeah, it's again, everyone's reason for closure is a little bit different, as I've covered on this podcast and shared elsewhere with the series. So yeah, it's never again an easy thing. It's a very very hard to shut anything down that you create or start, right? And yeah, I'm sure it's very very tough. If you run a lit mag like a decade or beyond that, right, it becomes a huge part of your life. And it is yeah, it's just really really sad news. But I just wanted to take the time to share Drunk Monkeys with you guys. And do totally, you can still browse their site. Some lit magazine journals, their founding editors, right, they keep the site up as long as they possibly can. And yeah, some places do have some print versions of maybe anthologies, or maybe the chapbook series. So it doesn't mean you still can't check out the publications that they've done, the amazing work that's out there. Yeah, I think it's online magazines. I think it's cool when they dive into print, but you don't always necessarily have to. But it's really up to you. Whether you want to do that if you're starting your own lit mag journal, or what focuses you want to have within it. And yeah, I just wanted to tack that on. I think in the beginning I may have lost some audio on talking about that, and talking about dealing with life events, physical things or health, right? It comes up for editors and things like that. And yeah, I can relate to that. And yeah, it's been I would say for the past couple of years, right? Quite as the editor letter had in there that I saw, right? Heavy events, right? For sure. I think past couple of years collectively in the world, right? And yeah, anyways, goodbyes are never easy, but just wanted to take the time to share, Drunk Monkeys, because they had some really cool work that they had published. So bye guys, take care. Officially signing off on this episode. Yeah.